So let's get started. So first of all, good morning, everybody from Israel, and welcome. So good news, lots of good news. Just getting my notes here. I know this is going to sound a little morbid, but this is actually really, really good news, and I'm very excited about it. And that is that every single one of my roles and that I'm playing here for the organization that I work for is we monitor the funeral announcements for lone soldiers that have died, to make sure that there are people at their funerals. And so we get the announcement, and then we make sure that people will be there. Yesterday was the first day there was no new announcements of funerals, which is a great thing, a really, really great thing, and a big relief. So I was very, very happy about that. We're moving forward. Things are slowly getting better, and thank God. That's the first. Second, we've found and killed, eliminated from this world, a number of the senior members of Hamas. So we're not talking about the leaders and the heads of Hamas, who are obviously cowards and don't live inside Gaza anyway. But we're talking about the leaders on the ground of their terrorism and their violence and their terrorists, and directing them where to attack. This will create, killing the leaders will create some sort of confusion, hopefully, and well, it's always good to get rid of evil in the world anyway. So even not for the overall war effort, but this is a very good thing. Okay, another good thing is that Prime Minister Netanyahu and Vladimir Putin, the head of Russia, spoke yesterday. Now, Vladimir Putin is not a good guy. We're not lining up with Vladimir Putin, but Vladimir Putin can cause a lot of damage in our world. He can really wreak havoc on a diplomatic level, and also he has a lot of soldiers stationed in Syria. A lot of his air force is stationed around Syria, and any sort of attack that Israel might have to take at Syria has to be somewhat coordinated with Russia to make sure that our planes don't collide. We've had that cooperation over the last couple of years, and it's important that continues. So that's very good that Bibi and Putin speak. Again, that doesn't mean that we're lining up with Russia and that Vladimir Putin's going to be our best friend, but it's important to make sure that we're not seen by Russia as some sort of enemy or anything of that nature. So that's a very, very good thing. Another great thing is that we got our first sign of life video from a hostage. That's very important. There are a lot of hostages, about 250 hostages out there, but we got our first sign of life of one of them, and she looked okay. She looked like she was injured, and she claimed that she had surgery in a hospital. I don't know if that's true, but it seems a little risky on Hamas's part to start putting hostages in such an area that's so easily surveilled and being able to see and track. So that's a that's a very good thing, that we got that sign of life. Now, we also found out that Hamas has 200 hostages, 199 hostages on their own, and 50 by other groups. We'll talk about what that means, that the 50 from other groups. Actually, let's talk about that now. The invasion, the attack, was perpetrated not just by Hamas, but by a lot of different groups. So you had really a lot of different groups. It wasn't just Hamas. It was 6 different militant groups, and then you also had a lot of other random people that came in. So when the hostages were taken, they were taken mostly by Hamas, and they were taken mostly by Hamas. But you had people who had no structure of command. Hamas is like it's an organization, but you had other people that grabbed hostages that they're not. Let's say, put it this way, they're not exactly under the command of anybody. So what you have people who just grabbed hostages, and now they don't really have a plan with them, and nobody's telling them what to do with them. Those are going to be the most difficult to find and difficult to help. So those are 50, and then you have the 200 Hamas hostages. No matter what, it's going to be difficult to find any of the hostages. They're going to be hidden. Hamas has had years to plan and prepare for having hostages. So this is not going to be an easy thing at all to try to find them. So that's the idea of the hostages. It's not it's a difficult situation in the least bit, and a ground invasion is going to put them at risk. An air invasion puts them at risk. Basically, anything that we do puts them at risk. But what other choice do we have? It's sort of like a catch-22. So we're trying to get them back. I have to imagine that behind the scenes, the United States of America is trying very hard to have them freed without having a ground invasion that happens. But I don't know. Hamas did announce that it's going to allow foreign nationals to be freed as soon as possible. Now, here's the thing: what does that mean? As soon as possible, and they said as soon as conditions allow. Let me explain. Israel is going to be sending drones out looking for these hostages. Now, how would you find hostages by drones? You look for patterns of Hamas movement around these areas. You look for things that are different. If an ambulance starts showing up at a certain place that it's not normally at, so that's going to be a sign that there's something different there, and that could be a sign where there is a Hamas person there. It's why, like under international law, when you take a hostage, you have to go ahead and allow the Red Cross to come see that hostage, make sure that they're okay, the prisoner of war. But Hamas is never going to allow that to happen. Besides the fact that they're cruel and they won't allow it to happen anyway. But all Israel would have to do is then follow that Red Cross member to find the member of Hamas and to find the hostage. So that's not going to make any sense. Hamas is not going to do that. So if Hamas would release hostages now, they would have to release hostages in a way that Israel could not trace where Israel would not be able to trace their where they were, so that they'd be able to find other hostages. So it's a little difficult for Hamas to release hostages and keep themselves from being detected. That's the challenge that Hamas has. So I think that Hamas does want to release foreign nationals because in their mind, as long as these foreign nationals, they're risking confrontation with the United States military that might come and get them. Even Greece and England have sent warships to the Mediterranean. So Hamas doesn't need that headache on their hands. So they'd want to let them go, but they can't let them go for that reason. It'd be easy to trace once they let them go. Okay. Yesterday, they had a little more disturbing news. There were rockets fired at Tel Aviv and Yerushalayim, and now it wasn't a hit and it wasn't dangerous. Nobody really got injured from them, but psychologically, it's very difficult when major population areas have to run into bomb shelters. That's very hard. It's one of the reasons why one of the complaints that people down south had was that Israel never really took care of Hamas. They just sort of would push Hamas off in every operation. They weakened Hamas, but never took care of them. And the people that suffered because of that was the people that were under constant rocket barrages, which are the people of the south. But the majority of the country who were in the middle of the country, what we call the Merkaz, and in Tel Aviv and Yerushalayim, so they never really felt what it was like to be under constant bombardment, which is why they never felt the pressure to take care of Hamas. But now that Tel Aviv and Yerushalayim are under bombardment of Hamas, so now everybody wants to we got to get rid of Hamas. So, and the reason for that is because when millions of people have to run into shelters, that does something to the national psyche, not a good thing. So when they start firing and missiles at or rockets at Yerushalayim and Tel Aviv, it has a real impression, really makes a mark on the country, and not a good one. It does not spread confidence in the country. It sort of puts us on edge, and millions of people on edge that normally aren't, that don't feel the effects of war firsthand. You might think, well, if they really cared, if these people are religious, how could they fire a rocket at Yerushalayim? How could they fire rockets at places where there's millions of Arabs living, right? So that's people get that wrong about Hamas. Yes, they are a religious organization. Yes, they're a Muslim organization. Yes, they have Arabs, and they're supposed to care about Arabs. But everything can be sacrificed in the name of the greater good of getting rid of Israel without an issue. And that's real Hamas's real approach to things, is that we can easily get, it doesn't matter how many Arabs have to die. And you're looking at that now, to switch topics a little, into the crisis in Gaza, where you have people wanting to leave. Israel announced, listen, our first invasion is going to be in the north, and we're going to be attacking the northern part of the Gaza Strip. So if you're in the Gaza Strip and you want to stay safe, move south. And what you watched was Hamas attack their own people and set up checkpoints in order that they don't move, putting them at risk, making them into human shields, and no one really cared. So Hamas is willing to do anything and put anybody at risk, even their own people, for the greater good. This is the big difference between Israel and Hamas, is Israel and fundamentalist Islam, is that we care about life, and they see life as just a simple vehicle to accomplishing a greater good. And if you have to give up life for that, then there's no problem. So that's what Hamas is really all about. 25 to 50% of the rockets that Hamas fires at Israel don't make it past the line of the border into Israel. They land in Gaza, and tons of Palestinians in Gaza are killed by Hamas rocket fire or that fall short. So there you go. That's how much they care about themselves. Okay, the big question is the ground invasion, and when's that going to start? We've got 150,000 soldiers waiting on the border. We've got tanks. Everybody's just sitting there. We were pretty much assured of this weekend that there was going to be a ground invasion, because Israel had announced to the people in Gaza and to the United Nations to move out of the north, and that they were going to be coming in. So Israel tells everybody that they're coming in, and then they're just waiting there, and the soldiers are literally just waiting there. They're just sitting there. They're not involved in any operations. They're not running exercises. They're simply sitting there waiting for the order to go in. And the question is, why aren't they going in? Now, I have to tell you, there's a lot of people put a lot of analysis, and I'm going to give you some of the answers that are out there as to why there's been no ground invasion. But we're not military experts. I'm not a military expert. So and I'm obviously not privy to the leadership, to the war cabinet's decisions, and their thinking here. So this is all speculation, and a lot of these answers I'm going to give are probably completely laughable if you knew the facts, and you were privy to the information. So the biggest theory that's out there is that Hezbollah, which is the Iran funded terror organization that's in the north of Israel, that sits South Lebanon, which is north of Israel, that sits there and has yet to really get involved. They've been firing some mortar here or there, but it has really yet to get involved, is waiting for Israel to commit its troops into Gaza. Once Israeli soldiers go into Gaza, they're in there until they accomplish their mission. And then Hezbollah would create a ground invasion into Israel from up north and fire tremendously up north, which would mean that Israel would have less soldiers up north. So they're waiting for that to happen. Now, the reason why I'm a little, again, I'm not a military expert, so I don't know, but the reason why I'm speculative about this, and I'm a little not so convinced that this is right, is because we also have tens of thousands of soldiers that we've called up in the reserves that are up north, and that are waiting, and that have been conducting operations and firings and attacks into Lebanon to eliminate Hezbollah threats that are waiting on the border. So it's not like we don't have soldiers up there. So it's hard for me to believe that the reason why we haven't created a ground invasion is because we're waiting to see what Hezbollah is going to do and if we could hold Hezbollah off. So I find that hard to believe, but again, I'm not an expert. Another theory that's out there is that the IDF needs time to prepare for something that it hasn't done in many years. The soldiers are not trained to go into Gaza. They don't have the experience. They're trained. They don't have the experience to do so. So it's going to take a couple of days to get them up to par and make sure that they're able to be able to conduct a ground operation in one of the most dangerous areas of the world, a place that's booby trapped with explosives everywhere. And there's hidden tunnels, and so it's not an easy thing. You just go in with brutal force and be able to move your way through Gaza. It's very dangerous. So we need time to prepare for something like that. Another thing is that once we enter into Gaza, the calculus of world support changes, especially American support. Right now, we enjoy American support. We enjoy the world support because, frankly, we haven't done much. But the minute we start moving into Gaza, there's going to be a lot more people dying, a lot more Gazans dying, and a lot more what they call innocent Gazans. These are people that aren't currently holding a gun. So once those pictures start coming out, so the world support is going to start to end. And so Israel's going to have to conduct a military operation, which will inflict maximum damage in minimal amount of time. They're going to have about 2 weeks to be able to do what they want and have carte blanche license from the world to do what they want to get rid of Hamas before the world says you're killing a lot of innocent people here. Maybe it's time to rein this in and de-escalate. So, and there's could be real calls for ceasefire. So in that sense, Israel wants to make sure that when it goes in the most efficient way possible and is able to really inflict the most damage to the enemy in the smallest amount of time, and that takes a couple of days to prepare. So that could be another reason why they're waiting. Another thing is that conducting an attack of this nature requires a tremendous amount of intelligence to know where Hamas members are running and how does Israel gather this intelligence? A lot of it is by drone, and it's been cloudy out, and drones are not as effective when it's cloudy. So it could be that Israel is waiting for a better weather pattern to be able to have the drones. These are theories that are out there as to why there's been no ground invasion. Now, another good piece of information which might have an adverse effect on a ground invasion is that President Biden is coming. President Biden is coming on Wednesday. He's announced that he's going to be here, which is, call a kavod to President Biden. We can have a lot of criticism for stuff that he's done until now. But in this war, he's been incredibly supportive, giving us what we need and support in the world. You don't have discussions in the UN about a ceasefire. You don't have President Biden discussing a ceasefire. There isn't that pressure that we have. So that in that sense, that's a great thing. But can Israel really conduct a ground invasion when the President of the United States is visiting on the ground? President Biden is not going to get anywhere near Gaza. He's not going anywhere near Gaza, so it's not that like we're worried that he might be put at risk if there's a ground invasion. He's not going to be put at risk, but the country's going to have to be, and especially the leadership is going to have to be fully focused on this ground invasion as it starts, to be able to entertain the President of the United States while that's happening. And he's only going to be here. I can't imagine he's going to be here for more than a couple of hours. He'll land in the region and then turn around. But it's hard to imagine that we can run a ground invasion and host the President of the United States at the same time. I don't know what this visit's going to look like. I assume it's going to be centered around Tel Aviv. I don't even know if we'll make it to Yerushalayim. It's a good question. I don't know. They're obviously not going to tell anybody what he's going to be doing beforehand. It's a little too risky, especially in a war zone. But we'll have to see. But it could be that Israel is pushing off a ground invasion now in order to entertain the President of the United States and make sure that he's taken care of properly. I don't know. Another thing that we saw is that American soldiers might be coming to Israel. That's something that generally never happens. And they wouldn't be coming in a combat role. They'd be coming in a supportive role. They could be medics. They could be logistical officers of that sense. It could be 2,000 soldiers supposedly have been put on notice that they might be moving into the Middle East. So if that happens, that would be a first. We've never had American soldiers on the ground in Israel in a supporting a war effort. I'm not sure how comfortable I feel that way about that. On the one hand, it's amazing to have American support. On the other hand, one of the great things about Israel is that we're self-sufficient, we're independent, and we're a Jewish state. Okay, last thing is the Squad, a bunch of anti-Semites in Congress, put together a bill that calls for a ceasefire, which makes it seem like, oh, they're such humanitarians, they want a ceasefire. No, what they're doing is essentially they're saying we're going to let Hamas have inflicted harm on you, but now that you want to go ahead and inflict harm on Hamas, now we're going to call for a ceasefire. It's really one of the most evil and nefarious type of legislative moves that a member of Congress can make, and these people are just, I mean, I don't want to get into them because I think that they're worthless human beings, but these people are horrific for them to get into a room. They're essentially Hamas supporters. There's no other way of looking at these people than Hamas supporters, and they support terrorism. Very simple. These are the people that are giving Hamas. If it was up to them, there would be a ceasefire now, and Hamas would go on to live another day, and that's what they would like. And if you are buying time and shilling time for Hamas, I mean, you're a despicable human being. Okay, let's open up for questions. We only have a couple of minutes, so let's open up for questions. If you have questions, please put them in the chat, and I will try to answer them. Okay, so waiting for the chat for questions to come in. If there are no questions, then we'll end here. Okay. Here we go. Okay, why are we responsible for Gaza's food, water, and energy? We're not responsible for Gaza's food, water, and energy. It's a talking point that people like to say about us, that we're responsible for the food, water, and energy of Gaza. We're not. First of all, we only used to supply Gaza with 10% of its water beforehand. So even if we shut off the water, Gaza still has 90% of the water it always had. We are not responsible for this. People like saying that we are. People say it's an international law that we are. That we're in violation of international law if we didn't. If you go to my Facebook page, I wrote a whole thing, one post on Friday about this and one post yesterday about this. And you can read about it more in depth there. How do we know for certain that Hamas members were eliminated? So it's a good question. We have intelligence that tells us this, and then Israel releases it. Israel's very proud to release it. It would be a real conspiracy theory to think that Israel's releasing this information and it's fake. There'll be I can't imagine that's true, but that's how we know is for certain, I don't know, but how we know is that Israel releases the information after it conducts the attacks. Why did we take Israelis out in 2006 and give the land to Arabs? Disgusting. I'm not sure if you're making a statement or you're asking a question. We took people out of there because we felt that it would be, Ariel Sharon was the prime minister at the time, and felt that it was too much effort to keep Jews safe in Gaza. Another theory is the reason why we took them out is we pulled Jews out of Gaza was because of the pressure to pull Jews out of Gaza and Judea and Samaria was so strong. Ariel Sharon felt that if he pulled them out of one area, they would lighten the pressure on the other, which did happen. But I don't know if that was worth the 25,000 rockets and the slaughter that we just recently experienced. Why hasn't Biden mentioned anything about Hamas leaders in Qatar? It's a good question. Qatar is an ally. I don't know if the United States is ready to really ruin that relationship. I'm not sure. Look, there's a lot going on behind the scenes. And I have to imagine one of those discussions is with Qatar. And do you really want to be hosting these people? I don't know, what the calculus is. It could be that Qatar, by hosting them, is able to conduct negotiations for hostages, especially American hostages. I don't know, but I imagine there's a lot behind the scenes going on that we're not privy to. With us bringing troops to Israel, with the U.S. bringing troops to Israel, do you think America is imposing their control by doing this? I think America imposes control anytime by doing this, but I think at this point, Israel is going to exercise its independence and tell the United States, listen, we're going to do what we need to get done. Supposedly, America is not pushing influence. The only thing America is pushing is that food should be allowed to get into Gaza. But otherwise, I think that, but at least what's being reported is that America is not pressuring Israel to do certain things or not do certain things. Is it true that Biden was only going to visit Israel if allowed humanitarian aid to go through the borders? I don't know if that's true or not. I'm not sure. It is something that America is pressuring. If Israel felt, I'm not sure if Israel felt that it would harm the war effort by providing humanitarian aid, if they would trade that for a visit from the President of the United States. I'm not sure. I don't know. But it's definitely something that America is pressuring Israel to do. And usually also you're putting a carrot out there, which is that if they allow humanitarian aid to go into Gaza, so that will allow Israel more time to operate within Gaza, because it'll lessen the humanitarian problems going on in Gaza. And I don't think that's true. I think that the Gazans are going to complain about, I think if every Gazan had a steak in front of them, they'd still complain that they don't have access to food and things. So I'm not sure. No. How is the day-to-day for you and those around you? Everyone going to grocery store work as relatively normally as possible? Thanks, Joe. That's a good question. Day-to-day I think for me is different than most people. Day-to-day for most people is it's just that people here are in a like cloud of confusion. Nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows what the future holds. Most businesses are closed because most of the business owners are on the front, right? Most men have been called up to the front, and most Arab workers are not working because Israel won't let them cross into Israel. So in that sense, a lot of the stores are closed. Grocery stores are open, bakeries are open, restaurants are basically doing takeout, and no one's really going out to eat. And some people go to work. A lot of people working from home. It feels a lot like COVID. So I know living relatively normal as possible, not so much. Something that people aren't talking about, and I'm not sure. I debate, go back and forth whether I should talk about it or not. I don't generally talk about it, but most of the towns are preparing for an Arab invasion, something of what happened in the South. I know we definitely are. So on the one hand, we're trying to live our lives normally, but on the other hand, we have one eye open, looking at our neighbors in Jericho and wondering what's going to cause them to try to perpetrate what happened in the South by us. And that has a lot of ramifications in our lives. One is I've got my gun with me next to me at all times, and I've modified my gun and made sure that it can be used in a way that's more effective in the case of a mass invasion. If Hamas is completely eliminated, who would take charge in Gaza? No one knows this. No one knows. No one's been able to answer this question for me. What happens the day after we eliminate Hamas? I don't know. The ground invasion in Gaza is to continue destroying Hamas. Does this also include rescuing the captives? There are for sure other terrorist groups besides Hamas in there. What is the main goal? The goal is to get rid of Hamas. That seems to be the goal. That's what Bibi Netanyahu and the war cabinet is announcing. We'd also like to rescue the captives. Those two goals are going to clash at certain times, and I'm not sure how our leadership decides which is more important: getting a captive or killing members of Hamas. I don't know. Why is Biden allowed to come to visit, but not Zelensky? I didn't know Zelensky's not allowed to visit, but we hate Zelensky out here. Israelis can't stand this man. Zelensky's the leader of the Ukraine. He does nothing but criticize Israel all day long, while voting against us in the United Nations. Israelis have zero tolerance for Zelensky. Okay, zero. Not that we're Putin fans and not that we're rooting for Russia, but this man himself, Israelis do not like. So nobody wants Zelensky to be here, and Zelensky's very bad for the Ukraine. But we don't like Zelensky and do not want him here. I heard they sent rockets to Yerushalayim for the first time. How is Israel protecting the holy city? We use Iron Dome to protect Yerushalayim. That's how we protect everybody. We can announce they struck a deal with Israel to allow humanitarian aid to Hamas. Okay, I didn't see that. If that's true, I'm not sure if that's true. If they did, that would be interesting. I think what you might be referring to is an announcement that allowed humanitarian aid to come through Egypt. And I'm not sure if Israel wasn't going to bomb the Egyptian border anyway, so I'm not sure that that's really an issue. Why do they think that releasing videos of hostages is normal? It's heartbreaking watching. It's obvious they tell them what to say when they're recording. So yes, it's true. It's heartbreaking to see these videos, and it's clear that they're being fed lines and they're told what they can say. Obviously, they're not allowed to just say what they want. Hey, I'm on this street, come get me. But at the same time, it's a sign of life. So that's something that's very good for us. We, on the one hand, yes, it's painful to watch these videos of the hostages, but At the same time, now we know that Mia's alive. That's really important. So, I would love to see more and more videos. I don't care if they come out and it's pure propaganda, to see videos of these. I would love 200 videos of 250 hostages to be able to see, to know that they're alive. Is the laser missile interceptor being used yet? Now, from what we see, that it's not being used yet. There's a lot of information out there. So no, it's not being used. And she says, and this flows fully. There's a lot of misinformation out there. How do you navigate? There's tons of misinformation out there. Just use reputable news sites like the Jerusalem Post, like Times of Israel. These are news sites that are not getting into speculation. They're going to tell you what the facts are. They're not going to report speculation. And don't get your news from social media sites. Don't listen to your friends when they post something. And if you're going to listen to a site that, let's say you think, let's say a Twitter account or a Facebook account that you think is knows what it's talking about, so just make sure they do know what they're talking about. Don't just assume. People throw things out there, and she's right that there's a lot of misinformation that they put out there. They're doing it on purpose, and some people just want to be like, they want to be the center of. They're looking for hits and they're looking for likes, so they'll say things that are not true. So okay, we will stop here. Have a great day, everybody, and we're on our way to victory. So we're on our way to victory, and be proud, be determined, be proud of your country, of Israel, and we're going to win this. We are going to win this one.